Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Moana 2 in English, then you must like this video if you are visiting our channel for the first time. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, friends. In today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called Moana 2. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it all. The interesting facts about this movie. In today's video, I am going to tell you, I am also going to give you all the information on which platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film storyline, star cast, actors' performance in the film, and which development on a follow-up to Moana originally began as a long-form limited streaming series for Disney Plus 9, before it was reworked into a theatrical sequel by February 2024, with Derrick confirmed as both writer and director. The involvement of Hand, Miller, Chen, and Merino was confirmed in May. A month later, Bush was confirmed to be returning as a writer. Miller later replaced Derrick as a co-writer in August. Mark Mancina and Opataya Foai, the composers and co-songwriters of the first film, returned to score and write the songs, while Abigail Barlow and Emily Baer replaced Lin-Manuel Miranda as additional songwriters. Moana 2 premiered at the Lanakahonua Cultural Institute in Kapolei, Hawaii, on November 21, 2024, and was released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures in the United States on November 27th. The film received mostly positive reviews from critics and has grossed $192 million worldwide. Plot: following her adventure with the demigod Maui and Te Fiti, Moana spends her days exploring other islands near her home island of Motunui in the hope of finding peoples connected to the ocean. In a vision, her ancestor, Tautai Vasa, reveals why none of those peoples are connected anymore. The malicious storm god Nalo wanted power over the mortals, so he sunk a legendary island called Motufetu, which connected all islands down to the depths of the ocean. Tautai further warns that Motunui will become empty of people in the future if Moana cannot find a way to raise Motufetu. She assembles a crew of people from Motunui, craftswoman Loto, Maui fanboy Moni, and grumpy elderly farmer Keki, alongside her pet pig and rooster, Pua and Heihei, to follow the path of a meteor across the ocean towards Motufetu. Meanwhile, Maui is seeking Motufetu himself since he had a previous quarrel with Nalo, but he is captured by Nalo's enforcer, Matangi. Maui is reluctant to contact Moana, as he fears she may not survive if she comes to help. Moana and her crew are captured by the Kakamora, a tribe of savage coconut-like pirates previously encountered by Moana, who reveal that Nalo's actions against Motufetu had caused them to be disconnected from their home island. One of them, Kotu, helps the crew paralyze a gargantuan monster clam inside of which is Matangi's lair. While the crew find Maui, Moana meets Matangi and learns that she is not happy serving Nalo. She helps Moana escape and reunite with Maui and her friends, before sending them to where Nalo is. Maui warns that Nalo's realm is deadlier compared to the mortal realm, and that fighting him will be a suicide mission for mere mortals. The group is ambushed by Nalo's monsters, their raft is damaged, and they are washed ashore on an isolated island. Moana begins to despair, but Maui encourages her to press on. With Moana revitalized, the group plans to have Maui raise the island so that Moana can touch it, as that is the only way to restore Motufetu and stop Nalo. Her crew repair her raft, but when the group ventures forth to confront Nalo, they encounter a gigantic storm. Moana, realizing that Nalo is trying to stop the humans from breaking the curse, asks Maui to lift the island enough for her to touch it. As Maui begins to pull up the island with his giant hook, Nalo strips Maui of his demigod status with a lightning bolt. Moana, in a moment of inspiration, dives into the ocean to touch the island underwater. Just as Moana succeeds, Nalo's storm kills her. Maui jumps in after her body and with a magical chant summons Moana's ancestors who help revive her as a demigoddess, with Moana gaining a Wayfinder's tattoo. Maui, having regained his powers as a demigod, finally raises Motufetu and reconnects the peoples of the ocean. Moana returns home to Motunui, leading a flotilla of the peoples of the ocean and a celebration is held in her honor. In a mid-credits scene, Nalo is bent on revenge and is about to punish Matangi for helping Moana when the monster crab Tamatoa arrives to join their cause. Cast. Cravalho reprises her role in the film's Hawaiian language dubbing. Dwayne Johnson as Maui, a strong-willed shape-shifting demigod who accompanies Moana on her journey. Hualālai Chung as Moni, a member of Moana's wayfinding crew and a fan of Maui's. Rose Matafeo as Loto, a brainy but quirky member of Moana's wayfinding crew. David Fain as Kela, a grumpy farmer and member of Moana's wayfinding crew. Oimai Fraser as Matangi, a mysterious threat to Moana and Maui. Fraser reprises her role in the film's Maori language dubbing. Khaleesi Lambert-Suda as Simia, Moana's little sister. Timura Morrison as Tui, Moana's father and chief of Motunui Island. Unlike the first film, where his singing voice was done by Christopher Jackson, Morrison does his own singing. Morrison reprises his role in the film's Maori language dubbing. Nicole Scherzinger as Sina, Moana's mother and chiefess of Motunui. Rachel House as Tala, Tui's late mother and Moana's paternal grandmother, who returns as a manta ray spirit. House reprises her role in the film's Maori language dubbing. Gerald Ramsey as Tautai Vasa, Moana's ancestor. Alan Tudyk as Heihei, Moana's pet rooster. Additionally, Johnson's daughters Jasmine and Tiana provide voices for members of Moana's fan club, Moana Bees. Tofiga Fepulei voices the god Nalo in the mid-credits scene, which also features the crab Tamatoa from the first film, again voiced by Jermaine Clement. Production development. In December 2020, during a Disney Investor Day meeting, Walt Disney Animation Studios Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee announced that a long-form musical comedy series titled Moana, the series, based on the 2016 film of the same name, was in development at the studio and set for release on Disney Plus in 2023. By August 2021, it was reported that Asnat Shurer would once again serve as producer. In January 2022, it was announced that Derrick Jr. would serve as the writer and director after filling the role of storyboard artist of the first film. The series entered development simultaneously with the live-action remake of Moana, according to Jared Bush, a writer of the film and screenplay writer of the 2016 animated film. In February 2024, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced that the series had been reworked into a theatrical sequel titled Moana 2, with Derrick and Shurer remaining attached to the project. By the release of the first trailer in May, Jason Hand and Dana Ledoux Miller were confirmed as co-directors alongside Derrick, while Christina Chen and Yvett Merino were revealed to replace Shurer as the film's producers. Casting. Animation. Animation was handled at Walt Disney Animation Studios' Vancouver studio when it was being developed as a series, while pre-production and storyboarding took place at the Burbank studio. It is the first feature film to be made at the Vancouver studio, but not the first project released, with Iwaju being released earlier that year. At the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, it was revealed that veterans Mark Henn and Eric Goldberg would supervise a team of apprentices of hand-drawn animators for Maui's tattoos. Goldberg was a supervising animator for Mini Maui for the first film. Music. Moana 2 Original Motion Picture Soundtrack. Soundtrack album by various artists. Released November 22, 2024. Producer. On November 7, 2024, Disney revealed a full track list along with the first single Beyond by Cravalho, which was billed as a spiritual sequel to the original Moana anthem, How Far I'll Go. On November 11th, Johnson revealed his song Can I Get a Chi Who as a female empowerment song for Moana's character, which follows the tune of Maui's original You're Welcome. The original motion picture soundtrack was released on November 22nd. Release Moana 2 had its world premiere at the Lani Kuhonua Cultural Institute in Kapolei, Hawaii on November 21, 2024, and was released in theaters in the United States on November 27, 2024. Marketing. The first trailer for the film was released on May 29, 2024, after debuting at CinemaCon the month before. The trailer earned over 178 million views in its first 24 hours across all platforms, breaking a new record as the most-watched trailer of all time for a Disney animated film, a record previously held by Frozen 2 and Pixar's Inside Out 2, the latter of which the trailer was attached to in the theaters. A sneak peek of the film was screened at the 2024 Annecy International Animation Film Festival on June 14, 2024. On August 9, 2024, Cravalho and Johnson appeared at the Disney Entertainment Showcase at the 2024 D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, to promote the film and release a new trailer, which was released online shortly thereafter. During the D23 presentation, Cravalho performed a new song from the film, We're Back, accompanied by Polynesian dancers. Johnson also used the presentation to announce a new live-action Monster Jam film that he would be producing with Disney. Localization. Like the first movie, Moana 2 was released in European countries with the title and protagonist's name changed to Vaiana due to a trademark conflict. 4 special dubbings in Polynesian languages were released for the sequel in Hawaiian, Maori, Tahitian, and Samoan. The first 3 languages had previously received a dubbing of the first movie too, while a Samoan dubbing of the sequel was released without the original movie having been dubbed. Cravalho reprised the lead role in the Hawaiian dubbing of the sequel, like she did in the first movie, while several other members of the cast reprised their roles in the Maori dubbing. Of the 6 movies dubbed into Maori so far, Moana 2 is the first one to have premiered in New Zealand simultaneously in English and Maori. This marks the 3rd time in Disney's history a dubbing in an indigenous language is released at the same time as regular dubbings. The first such instance happened with the Tahitian dubbing of Moana, released in 2016 in French Polynesia. The second was the Sami dubbing of Frozen 2, released in 2019 in Finland, Norway, and Sweden. Reception. Box office. As of November 29, 2024, Moana 2 has grossed $140 million in the United States and Canada and $52.7 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $192.7 million. In the United States and Canada, Moana 2 was originally projected to gross $115 million over the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend. After making $57.5 million on its first day, including $13.8 million from Tuesday night previews, both the highest ever for a Walt Disney animation film and Thanksgiving week release, 5-day estimates were raised to $175 to $200 million. It then made a record $28 million on Thanksgiving, nearly doubling the 2019 film Frozen 2's previous high of $14.9 million. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 65% of 149 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 6.110. The website's consensus reads, "Riding high on a wave of stunning animation even when its story runs adrift, Moana 2 isn't as inspired as the original, but still delights as a colorful adventure." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 57 out of 100, based on 41 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale, down from the first's A, while those surveyed by PostTrack gave it an 89% overall positive score, with 64% saying they would definitely recommend it. Moana 2 review. At the end of Moana, which came out 8 years ago, our plucky Polynesian heroine, who's not a princess, had defeated the giant lava monster Te Kā and returned the heart of Te Fiti, the moss-green goddess of nature. An eager but untested island girl, Moana became a wayfinder, restoring her lush tropical home and discovering along the way that her people had always been voyagers. She also bonded with the bickering but insecure refrigerator-bodied hunk demigod Maui, helping to restore his power as well. At heart, Moana was a buddy movie. All in all, she accomplished quite a bit, which may leave you wondering what's left for Moana to do in the sequel. The songs in Moana 2 by Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear are perky and appealing, with that electrified island drum bounce, but most of them sound like the imitation Lin-Manuel knockoffs they are. The early Getting Wistful About the Ocean number, Beyond, is fine in a generic way, but it's no How Far I'll Go. What Could Be Better Than This features a faux Lin rap, and Get Lost has a catchy hook. But none of the songs summon that indelible quality that sealed the story of Moana into our hearts. Maui still looks and talks like Jack Black on protein supplements, and Dwayne Johnson's performance, once again, is sheer blinkered aggro charm. The character of Matangi is introduced, a sharp-tongued goddess who Auliʻi Fraser voices like the reincarnation of downtown Julie Brown, but she's given too little to do. There is also a lot of colorful slime. Moana 2 is an okay movie, an above-average kiddie roller coaster, and a piece of pure product in a way that the first Moana, at its best, transcended. The new movie wears you down to win you over. It's a just efficient enough delivery system for follow your dreams inspiration to be a major holiday hit. When Maui, in one of the funnier lines, says to Moana that though she isn't a princess, a lot of people think you are, that's the film, in a good-natured way, having its rebel heroine cake and eating it too. By this point, Moana seems ready to level up to Island Queen, and I have a feeling that she'll get the chance. Can another tropical cataclysm, test of indie spirit moxie, and benign spasm of Maui troublemaking be far behind? Moana 2-inch is expected to make waves at the box office over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. The sequel to Disney's musical hit Moana opens in 4,200 North American theaters on Wednesday and is projected to collect between $135 million to $145 million in its first 5 days of release. Those ticket sales would register as the biggest Thanksgiving frame, overtaking 2019's Disney sequel Frozen 2, $125 million over the 5 days, and 2013's Hunger Games Catching Fire, $109 million over the 5 days. Black Friday delivered an estimated $109 million, the best ever for the day after Thanksgiving. The day stands as the second best moviegoing day stateside YTD after July's $18.3 million. As we told you, Disney's Moana 2 scored the best take for a title playing on Black Friday with $54.5 million. Wicked scored $32 million yesterday, the third best take ever for a movie on Black Friday after Frozen 2, $34.1 million. Gladiator 2 did $12.4 million yesterday, up 87% from its Thanksgiving $6.7 take. All titles yesterday were up 88% over Thanksgiving's $58 take. At the time of this post, there isn't a wait time for online ticket purchases on the AMC website. The circuit's boss Adam Aron is a happy camper, declaring that Americans are pouring into theaters for what is a national phenomenon. There's such a frenzy for Moana 2, Universal's Wicked, and Paramount's Gladiator 2 tickets that AMC at one point this morning was experiencing a 13-minute wait time. That's a rich man's problem for the number one exhibitor. The circuit has the situation under control, I'm told. Per ComScore, Friday easily will exceed the previous Black Friday record of $85 million, which was back in 2013 when Lionsgate's The Hunger Games Catching Fire was the number one title over the Wednesday-Sunday Thanksgiving period. Moana 2 is expected to do at least $55, which would make it a Black Friday record for the number one grossing film, above Frozen 2's $34.1 back in 2019. Wicked is on course to do $27 Friday, while Paramount's Gladiator 2 is eyeing at $12.6 million. Moana 2 already is blowing away the Frozen 2 $125 million 5-day record over Thanksgiving and could do 200+. Wicked is looking at the fourth best take over the holiday frame, with 105.2 is looking at $45. After receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors, Moana must journey to the far seas of Oceania and into dangerous, long-lost waters for an adventure unlike anything she's ever faced. Review. Whenever a studio gets a hit film, you can almost guarantee that there will be a sequel eventually. And after Moana took the world by storm in 2016, it was clear that we had a new franchise on our hands. So Disney has gotten to work, creating a Moana theme park at Disney World and even producing a live-action version set to release in 2026. But it would be silly to ignore the actual source of all this success, so they've taken to making a direct sequel to their hit film, and it's pretty much exactly what you'd think it'd be. I wasn't a massive fan of the first film, but I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to Disney animation. Give me a heartfelt story that tugs at my heartstrings, and I'm all about it. Moana 2 follows the title character, voiced again by Auliʻi Cravalho, as she sets out to find other islands of humanity. Her and Maui, Dwayne Johnson, must raise an entire island in order to bring the people together. While Moana and Maui are clearly the stars of the show, this also works as a team-up film, with her getting various characters to join her on her journey. They each are set up with good characterizations and feel distinct from one another. I had a blast with all of them, and they bring an energy that was mostly reliant on the rock the first go-around. Moana 2 is another Disney sequel that's content to go through the motions, often feeling like the Disney Plus original that it was once intended to be before pivoting to a holiday theatrical release. It looks gorgeous, which may be enough for some viewers, but it's a remarkably thin piece of storytelling, an adventure tale with very little actual adventure, and a musical with very few memorable songs. While the lingering goodwill of the beloved 2016 original could be enough to make this worth the price of admission, even the most Disney-fied family members will have trouble remembering much about it by the time the credits are done rolling. Moana 2 opens 3 years after the end of the first movie, with the titular heroine, Auliʻi Cravalho, endeavoring to break the curse of Nalo that has essentially isolated islands of people. Moana is searching the seas for the mythical island of Motufetu, which can reportedly unite these different cultures. Still, it has been so hidden by Nalo that generations have been unable to find it. Moana says goodbye to Mom Sina, Nicole Scherzinger, Dad Tui, Tamira Morrison, doing a lot with very little, and little sis Simia, Khaleesi Lambert-Suda, and sets sail with a new crew of wayfinders. These include her pet pig and pet rooster, along with 3 new allies, a farmer named Kila, David Fane, an architect named Loto, Rose Matafeo, and a warrior named Moni, Hualālai Chung, who idolizes the legendary Maui, Dwayne Johnson, who is being held prisoner by a witch named Matangi, Awimai Fraser, for the first hour of the relatively short film. Let's start there. Kids eager to see Moana and Maui reunite and sail the open seas will be disappointed by how little they actually interact in Moana 2. It's a truly baffling decision, given the natural chemistry between Cravalho and Johnson that most people associate with the first film. It takes about an hour for Moana and company to work their way across Oceania and get to Maui just as he escapes Matangi's imprisonment, which makes far too much of Jared Bush and Dana Ledoux Miller's script feel like setup. Kela, Loto, and Moni are fine, and who doesn't love quirky animal sidekicks? Kids will be wondering where Maui is for far too long. They would probably get less restless if Moana 2 had more adventure in general. While the film carries some notable, resonant cultural material, there's little actual adventure in what should be a story that amplifies Moana's burgeoning heroism. The gang encounters a tribe of coconuts and a giant clam, which are both cool designs, but there are few actual major events in Moana 2 when one thinks about the sparse nature of the plot when it's done. Honestly, Inside Out 2 has more old-fashioned adventure plotting, which is a true shame. This should be the movie that makes Moana into a truly heroic character, but the writers don't give her enough to do for that to happen. They also don't give her enough to sing. Don't underestimate the power of a great song or two to really elevate the legacy of a Disney animated film. Frozen wouldn't have hit the same without Let It Go, and the virality of that Bruno tune made Encanto a hit. When people think of Moana, the joyful "You're welcome" and the Oscar-winning beauty of "How Far I'll Go" are often what they think of first, and the original songs here just don't match the wonder of the original. To say that they really miss the involvement of Lin-Manuel Miranda would be an understatement. There's a playful Maui tune called Can I Get a Chee-Hoo that mostly works, and could maybe get that Bruno virality if the social team here plays it right. And you'll hear a reasonably rousing recurring theme called Beyond, but neither will be pumping through Disney World like the best of these songs from the best of these movies. But, through a vision, she receives an urgent message from the elders. Moana recruits a crew for her canoe catamaran. Regular sidekicks, the anxious pig and dim-wit chicken, are joined by an eager fanboy, an axe-happy inventor girl, and a sourpuss farmer, and sets out once more to be reunited with the demigod Maui, Dwayne Johnson, who, for reasons not fully explained, has been imprisoned in a bat cave, which appears to be located in the clam's capacious digestive system. A couple of songs, Beyond and Get Lost, are especially catchy, and the sequel doesn't take the easy way out. That is to say, it isn't primarily focused on the nostalgia we may have for the original animation, and actually takes its time setting up Moana's journey before she takes to the ocean once more. The animated sequel shows just how much Moana has grown since we last saw her, and she's got new dreams and fears to contend with that give her character development a lovely, thoughtful boost, and the story its higher stakes. There's a thoroughly lovely theme about the strength of togetherness that also shows up in the way Moana and her wayfinding crew, brainy canoe maker Ledoux, Rose Matafeo, Maui superfan Moni, Chung, and grumpy farmer Kella, David Fane, come together. The sequel underscores unity by contrasting isolation, the true community killer. Sadly, this theme becomes less defined by Nalo's machinations, which have unclear reasoning. And whereas the first film had a personal slant in terms of Maui's actions against Te Fiti and making things right, Moana 2 doesn't. Moana, in the 8-year wake since its release, has gone down as one of Disney's most impactful and successful animated efforts ever released. Obviously, that's saying something, especially for Disney. It seems that essentially nobody on the face of the planet dislikes it, and that just about everyone has seen it. The songs are still relevant, the big moments commonly referenced, and the streaming numbers ever inflated to boot. Sounds like prime ground for a sequel, right? Unfortunately, right. Moana 2, reworked from a television series suited for Disney+, burst onto the scene with a surprise announcement and revealed just earlier this year, after years of swirling rumors and shot-down suggestions. On top of the sudden announcement, the advertisements for this sequel were unusually short and uninformative. It was difficult to glean much at all about the film itself. All that could really be assured up to release was returning characters, lots of water, and funny animal sidekicks. Now that the movie is out, that ends up being about all it has to offer. Perhaps the trailers were suitable previews, after all. Not to be too harsh on the thing, there's a clear air of inspiration, even if only between the gasping breaths of a hackneyed story. But in comparison to the first film, there's a gaping hole right where the heart should be. To that point, much of the narrative here is an unashamed retread from better beats in the first movie. In this one, the titular Moana must travel out onto the open ocean once more in order to defeat an evil god's curse and restore communion to the scattered people of the sea once more. The issue is in the concept, as Moana 2 is a quest-based sequel to a character-based original. After spending so much time with Moana and Maui, we'll get there, in the first movie, learning to love and care for them, simply joining them on a wacky adventure this time around isn't enough. Going from intense, varied personal stakes in the 2016 film to none at all this time around drives a severe disconnect between the two. What is supposed to be a direct sequel ends up feeling plain, forgettable, and derivative. Just as the first movie does, this one opens on Moana padding about her home island for the first act or so, before a conflict calls her out to sea. After a moment of self-doubt quelled by a spiritual call, this movie repeats that bit to a T. She finally hauls off to confront her destiny. Where the first film found ground in the ensuing events for Moana to grow as a character, challenging her doubt and growing into her purpose, this one finds her well-suited for the journey. She sails well and moves with the ocean, unbothered by most of the dangers that plagued her the first time. That important conflict is replaced in the second movie by a predictable cast of one-note side characters, in addition to an array of small threats that fade in and out of focus until the curse can finally be confronted in the finale. Maui's journey doesn't even cross with Moana's until much of her trek is already over. That's the best part of the first movie, their dynamic, missing from half of this one. Despite so much borrowed material being present here, somehow the best part was still left behind. What Moana 2 gets right is mostly non-essential, but still, kudos are kudos. The film looks and sounds brilliant. Of course, this one still isn't a match for the first movie on either front. The music, especially, is a marked downgrade, but there's still a lot of fun to be had with consistent, relentless comedic writing and basically catchy tunes that fit their moment. Most of these shenanigans come during the film's middle portion, which is spent almost entirely at sea, and serve as proper distractions while the film works to chart a way towards a more than serviceable finale. In moments like these, wherein we're doing nothing more than jumping from set piece to set piece just for the sake of it, you can turn your brain off a bit and just enjoy the company of Moana, Maui, and the carousel of side characters. Should you have to turn your brain off in this universe? No, definitely not. But it's preferred to forcing yourself to suffer and not accepting the easy fun when it's offered to you. That really is the moral of this story. Taking what you can get. While Moana 2 is deeply disappointing when judged as a follow-up to the modern classic that is the first movie, it can also be taken as a perfectly enjoyable piece of family entertainment this holiday season. The animation is fluid and clearly expensive, colors pop, and characters sing. The film's heavily emotional climax earns a few extra points for memorability as well. It just is what it is. Have fun where you can, mourn where you must, and cut your losses before they try and ruin your memory of the first film with the upcoming live-action remake. Originally developed as a limited series for Disney's popular streaming platform, Moana 2 segued into a feature-length film and a proper sequel well into production. Unfortunately, the frustratingly middling results on screen show every indication of being rejigged and haphazardly compressed into a sub-2-hour running time. Familiar characters barely receive any screen time, while those new to the franchise barely find purchase before they're relegated to the background. Still others, like the first film's co-lead Maui, voiced once again by Dwayne Johnson, oddly spend the first rambling hour mostly off-screen. And that's not saying anything about the underlying motivation behind Moana's Auliʻi Cravalho actions in the sequel. A clumsily introduced, hazily rendered vision of a far future where her island home, Motunai, has been abandoned by her people, or worse, forcibly removed by forces unseen and unknown. It's meant to be more than enough for Moana, the eldest daughter to the island's benevolent chieftain, Tui, Tamura Morrison, and his wife, Sina, Nicole Scherzinger, to seek out new life far away from the comforting shores of her home island. Moana's new goal doesn't just involve setting sail for the high seas, using the night stars to guide her, and a friendly ocean to carry her. She's propelled on after she learns of a long-lost cursed island named Motufetu. If she finds and raises the island, sunk under the sea by the malevolent storm god, Nalo, she'll find the missing connection between her people and the far-flung residents of Polynesia. They've been cut off from each for centuries, if not millennia. Presumably, finding other Polynesians will somehow save Moana's people somewhere down the line. The how and why, however, never gets answered. Before Moana can venture out on her new adventure, she needs a crew. Cue crew-finding sequence involving Ledoux, Rose Matafeo, the island's hyperactive shipbuilder and designer, Moni, Hualālai Chung, chief storyteller and Maui's ultimate fanboy, and Kele, David Fane, a curmudgeonly farmer chosen by Moana more for his comedy potential and less for what he can contribute as a crew member. It's not Disney unless adorable farm animals are involved, of course. So Moana brings along Hei, Alan Tudyk, the pea-brained chicken held over from the first film, and Pua, a member of the porcine genus with a slightly unfriendly nature. Once Moana 2 finally sets sail, leaving the island and its inhabitants behind, the real adventure begins, and Disney's animators get to work, delivering one crowd-pleasing set piece after another. It begins but doesn't end, with the return of the first film's minor league foes, the Kakamora, aka Coconut Pirates, and a monstrously vast clam larger on the outside than the inside. Sandwiched between the Coconut Pirates, the giant clam, and a spectacular third act practically worth the price of one or more admissions, Maui returns to Moana's side, his reluctance fueled not by his outsized ego this time, but by genuine concern for Moana's safety. With the singular emphasis on adventure and a vaguely defined goal, character arcs, specifically additional growth for either Moana or Maui, fall by the wayside. The Moana and Maui we meet at the beginning of their second go-round remain the same. She's grown into young womanhood, confident in her wayfinding abilities, Polynesian seafaring, driven by her unabashed and unironic love for her family and community, while Maui, less the shape-shifting trickster god here than in the first film, functions primarily as an aid to Moana and her mission. Apparently, he was given all the emotional growth he needed in the previous film. Moana to touch the island undersea with Nalo storm killing. Her Maui jumps in, and with the help of Moana's ancestors, they revive her with Moana gaining a Wayfinder's tattoo and Maui raises Modu reconnecting the ocean. With the mortals, Moana returns home, and a celebration is held in her honor in a mid-credit scene. Nalo is about to punish Matangi for helping Moana with him planning revenge. They are soon visited by Tamatoa, who wants to join their cause to get revenge on Moana for her actions against him in the first film cast. And characters Auliʻi Cravalho as Moana, the curious daughter of village chief Tue, and his wife Sena, who is chosen by the ocean to break the curse on the island of Modukalo, i.e.s. her role in the film's Hawaiian language dubbing Dwayne Johnson as Maui, a strong-willed shape-shifting demigod who accompanies Moana on her journey. Hualālai Chung as Moi, a member of Moana's wayfinding crew and a fan of Maui Rose Mafio as Ledoux brainy but quirking member of Moana's wayfinding crew. David Fain as Kay, a grumpy farmer, and member of Moana's wayfinding crew. Leif Fraser as Matangi, a mysterious threat to Moana and Maui. Fraser reprises her role in the film's Maui language dubbing. Kissy Lambert-Suda as Saya Moana's little sister. Tioa Morrison as to Moana's father and chief of Motunui Island, unlike the first film, where his singing voice was done by Christopher Jackson Morrison, does his own singing. Morrison reprises his role in the film's My language dubbing. Nicole Scherzinger as Tina, Moana's mother and chiefess of Ui Rachel House, is Talatu's late mother and Moana's paternal grandmother, who returns as a manta ray. Spirit House reprises her role in the film's Maui language dubbing. Gerald Ramsey as Ti. Vesa, Moana's ancestor Alantek, is Haya, Moana's pet rooster. Additionally, Johnson's daughters Jasmine and Tiana provide voices for members of Moana's fan club Moana. Bees Tagafuli voices the god Nalo in the mid-credit scene, which also features Tamatoa from the first film, again voiced by Jermaine Clement. Production in December 2012 during a Disney Investor Day meeting. Walt Disney Animation Studios Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee announced that a long-form musical comedy series titled Moana, the series based on the 2016 film of the same name, was in development at the studio and set for release on Disney Plus in 2023. That be why, August 2021, it was reported that Osnet Sher would once again serve as producer. In January 2022, it was announced that Derrick Jr. would serve as the writer and director after filling the role of storyboard artist of the first film. That series entered development simultaneously with the live-action remake of Moana, according to Jared Bush, a writer of the film and screenplay writer of the 2016 animated film. In February 2024, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced that the series had reworked into a theatrical sequel titled Moana 2, with Derrick and Sher remaining attached to the project by the release of the first trailer in May. Jason Hand and Dana Leo Miller were confirmed as co-directors alongside Derrick, while Christina Chen and Yvett Merino were revealed to replace Sher as the film's producers, casting shortly after the announcement that the series was being repurposed into a theatrical feature. Film Auliʻi Cravalho and Dwayne Johnson were confirmed to reprise the respective roles as Moana, and Maui Johnson later confirmed that he had been involved with the project since its conception, including its development, stating, "I can't wait for fans to see the film, the technology, the effects cutting edge. We all really went for it. We thought, if we're going to make a sequel to something so beloved, let's really go for it." Several more cast members were unveiled at the One International Animation Film Festival, including Tioa Morrison and Nicole Scherzinger reprising their roles as Moana's parents from the first film. New additions include Kessy Lambert-Suda as Moana's new sister, and Rose Mafio David Fain and that Hualālai Chung as members of Moana's wayfinding crew. Animation was handled at Walt Disney Animation Studio Vancouver Studio, beginning when it was being developed as a series, while pre-production and storyboarding took place at the Burbank Studio. It is the first feature film to be made at the Vancouver Studio, but not the first project released, with Aja being released earlier that year at the One International Animation Film Festival. It was revealed that veterans Mark Henn and Eric Goldberg would supervise a team of apprentices of hand-drawn animators for Maui's tattoos. Goldberg was a supervising animator for Minnie Mau for the first film, Mark Menina and Opid Fai returned to compose the film score, while Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear wrote the songs, replacing Lin-Manuel Miranda from the first film. Kahlo stated that having Barlow and Bear, two young women, help voice Moana's story, which is a young woman finding her way. I couldn't think of a better duo than Barlow and Bear. This is a new part of my voice. This film digs into these low notes in these times of indecision when we don't know what we are supposed to do next. There's a lot of deeper layers to these songs. On November 7th, 2024, Disney revealed a full track list along with a first single, Beyond by Kahlo, which was billed as a spiritual sequel to the original Moana anthem. How Far I'll Go. On November 11th, Johnson revealed his song, Can I Get a Chihu, as a female empowerment song for Moana's character, which follows the tune of Maui's original, You're Welcome. The original motion picture soundtrack, released on November 22nd, release Moana 2 had its world premiere at the Lanikuhonua Cultural Institute in Cap, Hawaii on November 21st, 2024, and was released in theaters in the United States on November 27th, 2024. Marketing. The first trailer for the film was released on May 29th, 2024, after debuting at CinemaCon the month before. The trailer earned over 178 million views in its first 24 hours across all platforms, breaking a new record as the most watched trailer of all time for a Disney animated film, a record previously held by Frozen 2 and Pixar's Inside Out 2, the latter of which the trailer was attached to in the theaters. A sneak peek of the film was screened at the 2024 WANT International Animation Film Festival on June 14, 2024. On August 9, 2024, Kahlo and Johnson appeared at the Disney Entertainment Showcase at the 2024 D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, to promote the film and release a new trailer, which was released online shortly thereafter. During the E23 presentation, Kahlo performed a new song from the film, We're Back, accompanied by Polynesian dancers. Johnson also used the presentation to announce a new live-action Monster Jam film that he would be producing with Disney localization. Like the first movie, Moana 2 is set to be released in European countries, with the title and protagonist's name changed to Viana due to a trademark conflict. 4 special dubbings in Polynesian languages are set to be released for the sequel in Hawaiian, Maui, Tahitian, and Samoan. The first 3 languages had previously received a dubbing of the first movie, while a Samoan dubbing of the sequel will be released without the original movie having been dubbed. Kahlo is set to reprise the lead role in the Hawaiian dubbing of the sequel, like she did in the first movie, while several other members of the cast will reprise their roles in the Mai dubbing of the 6 movies dubbed into Maui so far. Moana 2 will be the first one to premiere in New Zealand, Sim Owsley in English, and Maui. This marks the 3rd time in Disney's history a dubbing in an indigenous language is released at the same time as regular dubbings. The first such instance happened with the Tahitian dubbing of Moana, released in 2016 in French Polynesia. The second was the Sami dubbing of Frozen 2, released in 2019 in Finland, Norway, and Sweden. Reception. According to Deadline, Hollywood Moana 2 is projected to gross over $5 to $115 million in the United States and Canada over the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend, making it the biggest opening for a film released during that period, a record currently held by Frozen 2013. On November 26th, the film set a record for Disney and Thanksgiving weekend box office previews, earning $13.8 million. This was higher than the $13 million that Inside Out to 2024, which would go on to be a box office, made in its preview box office critical response on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. 67% of 129 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 6.2 SL10. The website's consensus reads, riding high on a wave of stunning animation even when its story runs adrift. Moana 2 isn't as inspired as the original, but still delights as a colorful adventure. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 57 out of 100, based on 39 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. Moana 2 movie reviews at the end of Moana, which came out 8 years ago. Our plucky Polynesian heroine, who not a princess, had defeated the giant lava monster Taa and returned the heart of Ti, the the moss-green goddess of nature, N. Eager but untested island girl Moana became a wayfinder, restoring her lush, tropical home and discovering along the way that her people had always been voyagers. She also bonded with the bickering but insecure refrigerator-bodied hunk demigod Maui, helping to restore his power, as well at heart Moana was a buddy movie. All in all, she accomplished quite a bit, which may leave you wondering what's left for Moana to do in the sequel. That's a silly question, of course, since the premise of a movie like Moana 2 is that a team of screenwriters are going to put their heads together and come up with a whole lot of seismic news, saving the world. Hoops for Moana to jump through the movie has barely even begun when it hits us with a cataclysm. Moana, voiced once, again with pearly precocity by Auliʻi Cravalho, is yearning to seek out people from other islands, but she discovers that isn't possible. The nasty god Nalo has placed a curse on Modu, the island that once connected everyone. How does an island connect everyone? Oh, never mind. Moana must now journey to the distant seas of Oceania to remove that curse by fighting Nalo. I wouldn't quite put this in the category of same as T different day, but the story is engineered to strike very familiar beats. It's also what Stephen C. Bannon, for one, would call a parable of globalization. The difference is that Moana has already grown up into a half-heroine who found her faith, believes in herself, and all that other good stuff. She doesn't have much in her journey left, so Mo 2, far more than the first film, becomes a non-interior animated action fairy tale in Moana. I always felt like the sequence where Moana Maui and their animal sidekicks, the cuddly pig Pua, the demented rooster Hai fight off, the Kakura, those coconut pirates who look like souvenirs in a Tahiti novelty shop, slowed the movie down in Moana 2. Moana travels on her handsome flat canoe with a crew of one-notey human sidekicks. The punky brat, Lotto Rose Madio, the Kagan farmer, K. David Fane, and the Mooney, a dude Moai Chong, who idolizes Maui to the point of having a crush on him when she runs once more into the Kakamura. But the sequence that follows is actually the most rousing in the movie so far. They team up with that coconut brigade to defeat a clam, so massive that it's literally a mountain split in half. That's a cool image to gawk at. And there are other ticklish creatures in Moana too, like towering sea monster or this movie's equivalent of the lava demon, the god Nalo, a purple light force embedded in ocean tornadoes that emit such a potent charge they knock the tattoos right off of Maui. Moana 2 has 3 directors, David G. Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Dana Leo Miller, none of whom has made a feature before they staged the film with a standard, impressive technical flair, a flow of movement that keeps your eyeballs dancing. That said, this is also a musical one, that Lin-Manuel Miranda having launched a new branch of his career as a Disney tunesmith with Moana elected not to come back for. I can understand why. His moan songs were memorable, especially How Far I'll Go, Yan You're Welcome, and he only upped his game with Encanto in even more intricately inspired entertainment. But Miranda, I'm guessing, figured that he'd already told the story of Moana through song and didn't need to rehash it. The songs in Moana 2 by Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear are perky and appealing with that electrified island drum bounce, but most of them sound like the imitation Lin-Manuel knockoffs. They are the early getting wistful about the ocean number beyond is fine in a generic way, but it's no How Far I'll Go. What could be better than this? Features a Fenwap and Get Lost, has a catchy hook, but none of the songs summon that indelible quality that sealed the story of Moana into our hearts. Maui still looks and talks like Jack Black on protein supplements, and Dwayne Johnson's performance once again is sheer blinkered agar charm. The character of Matangi is introduced, a sharp-tongued goddess who Alamy Fraser voices like the reincarnation of downtown Julie Brown, but she's given too little to do. There is also a lot of colorful slime. Moana 2 is an okay movie, an above-average kiddie roller coaster, and a piece of pure product in a way that the first Moana, at its best, transcended the new movie, wears you down to why you over. It's a just efficient enough delivery system for follow your dreams inspiration to be a major holiday hit when Maui, in one of the funnier lines, says to Moana that though she isn't a princess, a lot of people think you are. That's the film, in a good-natured way, having its rebel heroine cake and eating it too. By this point, Moana seems ready to level up to Island Queen, and I have a feeling that she'll Get the chance. Can another tropical Katakem test of indie spirit moxie, benign spasm of Maui troublemaking, be far behind when Disney first announced Moana 2 in February 2024? I was apprehensive. Here was a surprise announcement mere months out from a November release that a Moana TV show had been reworked into a feature film. Did that mean Moana 2 was a rush job for Disney to recover from some of its 2023 box office disappointments like The Marvels and Wish? And if so, would that mean sacrificing quality for a swift turnaround? Thankfully, Moana to soothe my worries, and then some, thanks to its blend of epic adventure and its deeply felt story about family ties. Yes, there are elements that don't hit as hard, including a cookie-cutter villain and some songs that just don't pass muster when compared to Moana's, but most of Moana 2 measures up to, and occasionally even surpasses what came before, and that's due in no small part to the growth of its incredible heroine, even if you haven't rewatched Moana. Since 2016, Moana 2 wastes no time in reminding you that Moana, voiced by Auliʻi Cravalho Mean Girls, is a total badass in the film's opening sequence. She runs through a dense rainforest. Forrest leaps across a ravine and climbs a steep rock face with her trusty pig Pua on her back. Seconds later, we get a classic hero shot Moana, hair streaming in the wind. Atop an island mountain, survey the vast ocean around her. She takes a deep breath, blows a welcoming call into her conch, and no one answers. Turns out, despite Moana's expert wayfinding skills, she hasn't been able to find any other humans who live in the ocean. Moana's island home of Motunui is thriving, though, and Moana is nothing less than a living legend there. Young girls dress and do their hair like her, going as far as to find their own version of Pua. The film dubs them Mo. Abe's everyone calls her the future of Motunui. Her father, Tui Teoa Morrison, the Book of Boba Fett Motunui, is chief, even wishes to bestow the title of Tai upon her in honor for a skilled navigator and leader that hasn't been held for many, many years. Products available for purchase here through affiliate links are selected by our merchandising team. If you buy something through links on net, our site Mashable may earn an affiliate commission. But when Moana gets a desolate vision of Muni's future, should they not reconnect with other humans, she faces a difficult choice. She could strike out for the legendary island of Maju, which used to connect all the ocean's pathways and peoples, yet it's farther than Moana or any of her ancestors have ever gotten, not to mention cursed by the human-hating god Nalo. If she goes, she risks not coming back to her family or her beloved island. Here's where Moana 2 really shows us how far Moana has grown with age and greater status in Motunui. She's become far more aware of the stakes of her potential failure. Plus, she's terrified to lose her family, especially her scene-stealing little sister Simia Kessi Lambert Suda with the weight of the world on her shoulders. Moana sets a course for Maud. Fitu, along with an upgraded canoe and a new crew. Moana may be used to wayfinding by herself, but in Moana 2, she's got to share a canoe with 3 newbies. Keen-eyed inventor Lotto Starstruck's Rose Mafio brings an endearing enthusiasm to the squad, even if her tendency to take apart the canoe in her efforts to improve it is concerning. As the oldest member of the crew, you might expect Farmer K. David Fiend, our flag means death, to bring elder wisdom to the Maud journey, but he's more the crotchety complainer type. Rounding things out is Motunui legend expert M. Kai Chung, who doubles as the canoe's resident Maui Dwayne Johnson fanboy. Yes, he paints fanfic of him and Maui being best friends. So imagine Mo's sadness when he realizes Maui isn't along for the ride, while Moana could desperately use his help. Maui is actually in a pickle of his own. He's trapped by Nal's accomplice, the goddess Matangi Awami Fraser, whom I can only describe as a bat diva, constantly surrounded by a cloud of the winged creatures and even sporting bat fangs. Herself, Matangi exudes vamp icy aura. She almost gives Moana's shiny crab Tamatoa Jermaine Clement a run for his money. But Matangi isn't the only foe Moana and one company will have to conquer the coconut. Pirates known as the Kakamura are back to wreak havoc, while a giant island-sized clam risks swallowing our heroes whole with so many colorful creatures to face. It's a shame that Moana 2's big bad, Nalo, is basically a non-entity, reducing the otherwise very cool final set piece to a faceless confrontation within Clement. Weather contrast Moana 2's magical water spouts with Moana's expressive lava monster Teika. to get a sense of how detached the sequel is from its villain, except for a mid-credit scene that somehow implies he's Moana Thanos. Luckily, Moana 2 finds plenty of connection elsewhere, from Moana's friendships with Maui and her crewmates to her continued relationship with her ancestors, Grandma Tala Thor, Ragnarok's Rachel House is back to pass along some wisdom and give us a good hard cry along the way. Elsewhere, Moana's steadfast belief in bringing the people of the ocean back together makes for a necessary counterpoint to Nal's hopes to see discord and isolation, at least what little we learn of it through exposition. Moana's optimism and determination proves there's power in connection, which we get to see firsthand as her crew begins to gel at sea with its beautiful textured animation and its propulsive adventure to the far ends of the ocean. Moana 2 is another win for Disney Animation, the only major letdown. The film songs, which are totally okay, but certainly nothing special compared to Moana's greatest hits. Moana composers and songwriters Mark Menina and Opeta Hawaii have returned from Moana 2.0, but one key member of the first film's team is missing. Songwriter Lin-Manuel Miranda taking his place are Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear, the Grammy-winning team behind the unofficial Bryden musical. Even so, Miranda's presence is greatly missed, with songs often feeling like lackluster rehashes of the first film. Songs Take Beyond, essentially a toned-down evolution of How Far I'll Go, where Moana readies herself to go back out into the ocean. Cravalho's delivery is gorgeous, and I could listen to her sing for hours. But do I remember a single line of that song? Beyond, I'll go beyond. Then there's Maui's Can I Get a Chiwu, a patter song that will make you miss the fast-paced wordplay of your Welcome. A Flaming Kong solo does lend it some extra flair. The patter extends to Travel Song. What could be better than this? While I adore Mafi's lightning fast delivery of Lou Science-themed rap, it all feels like imitation Miranda. Awkward, rhythmic moments and some obvious rhymes further highlight how much of an asset he was on Moana. Even the funky Get Lost. My beloved Bat Diva Mat's big number is a letdown based on her character introduction. You might expect something in the vein of a dark Bond theme. Instead, you get a pop tune that, despite Fraser's serious pipes, feels fairly generic. The slow-down piano beginning also can't help but remind me of The Princess and the Frogs, Almost There, although I'm sure other similarities abound. All I'm saying is if the previous film's villain song featured a giant coconut crab doing a David Bowie tribute, you've got to high. At least Moana 2's less-than-inspired songs get a boost from their accompanying animated sequences. Can I get a Chai who drops us into a god-tier obstacle course, while Get Lost features some pretty rad choreography. What could be better than this? Also scores laughs from Kayla's annoyance at Moana Mo and Ledoux' increasingly excited dances, which low-key read like they're trying to get him to join their ocean-loving cult. That's the magic of Moana 2. Even when the songs aren't hitting something else, we'll elevate them, turning a decent number into a great experience. Other information about this film. Back in the 1990s, Disney frequently released direct-to-video sequels to their popular theatrical properties. Occasionally, these sequels would be constructed from several episodes of an abandoned TV series, and they were the absolute worst. So when I heard that the Moana limited series on Disney Plus would be restructured into a theatrical sequel, my mind flew back to the horror of those direct-to-video duds. And while Moana 2 does feel like a fully constructed story, as opposed to several disparate episodes, it's completely missing the heart and soul of the original film, Moana Oi Kalo. Mean Girls has spent the last several years as a wayfinder for her people, searching for other communities spread across the ocean. When she receives a message from her ancestors, she sets out with a new crew in search of a missing island that can lead to finding those other communities, if only they can survive these new dangerous waters. Moana 2 is gorgeously displayed with some of the most striking visuals of recent animated fare, and the three-person directing team made great use of that visual palette in order to showcase some of the most action set pieces of the year. While the film is lacking in other aspects, it's absolutely exciting when focused on its adventure story, even though it's similarly structured to its predecessor, providing new context to some returning players like the Kakamura and even some new mythical creatures like the giant clam. island are delightful, unfortunately. Moana 2 feels like a movie of obligatory elements that are both unnecessary and unsuccessful the first. Film featured musical numbers, so the creative team included new songs, but the absence of Lin-Manuel Miranda is felt. And there isn't a single song in the film that is impactful or memorable once leaving the theater. The first film had Dwayne Johnson, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle as Maui, so the team wrote Maui into the sequel. The problem is that Maui doesn't feel necessary to Moana 2. This time around, Moana has a team of her villagers assisting in her quest. And if the film had given the dedicated Maui runtime to developing these supporting characters and Moana's internal journey to become the leader her people need her to be, the film would have been all the better. Speaking of the new secondary characters, I appreciated the idea of giving a chance to become a leader and introducing a number of new characters to join her. This should give the sequel an identity all its own, but we quickly learn, however, that the screenplay just assigns each of these supporting players a single definable trait. One of them loves to tinker. One of them hates everything. One of them loves Maui. But that's about it. Had these characters been fleshed out, the whole film would have felt more important to Moana's character growth as she finds a way to make them work together. But no, we have to get Maui back instead, making the follow-up feel more washing repeat than its original. Moana 2 has some genuine excitement in its narrative, and it's a lovely-looking movie, but it feels so shackled to what the filmmakers think. They need to include, instead of what would actually benefit the film, remove the music and Maui, and uplift your supporting players, and the sequel has a lot more to work with. But what is here feels a little soulless. While not a bad film, certainly much better than most of those direct-to-video sequels. This follow-up is a mixed bag. It'll work for families looking for harmless, consumable entertainment, though I found it to be a mostly missed opportunity to forge a new path. Moana 2 is another Disney sequel that's content to go through the motions, often feeling like the Disney Plus original that it was once intended to be before pivoting to a holiday theatrical release. It looks gorgeous, which may be enough for some viewers, but it's a remarkably thin piece of storytelling. Adventure tale with very little actual adventure, and a musical with very few memorable songs, while the lingering goodwill of the beloved 2016 original could be enough to make this worth the price of admission. Even the most Disney-fied family members will have trouble remembering much about it by the time the credits are done rolling. Moana 2 opens 3 years after the end of the first movie, with the titular heroine, Auliʻi Cravalho, endeavoring to break the curse of Nalo that has essentially isolated islands of people. Moana is searching the seas for the mythical island of Modu, which can reportedly unite these different cultures. Still, it has been so hidden by Nalo that generations have been unable to find it. Moana says goodbye to Mom Sina, Nicole Scherzinger, Dad Tetewa Morrison doing a lot with very little, and little sis Simia Kisi. Lambert Suda and sets sail with a new crew of wayfinders. These include her pet, pig and pet rooster, along with 3 new allies, a farmer named K. David Fain, architect named Lado Rose Mafio, and a warrior named Auliʻi Chung, who idolizes the legendary Maui Dwayne Johnson, who is being held prisoner by a witch named Matangi Amai Fraser for the first hour of the relatively short film. Let's start there. Kids eager to see Moana and Maui reunite and sail the open seas will be disappointed by how little they actually interact in Moana 2.0. It's a truly Bay decision, given the natural chemistry between Cravalho and Johnson that most people associate with the first film. It takes about an hour for Moana and company to work their way across Oceania and get to Maui just as he escapes Matan's imprisonment, which makes far too much of Jared Bush and Dana Leo Miller's script feel like setup. K. Lotto and Mo are fine, and who doesn't love quirky animal sidekicks? Kids will be wondering where Maui is for far too long. They would probably get less restless, if Moana 2 had more adventure. In general, while the film carries some notable resonant cultural material, there's little actual adventure in what should be a story that amplifies Moana's burgeoning heroism. The gang encounters a tribe of coconuts and a giant clam, which are both cool designs, but there are few actual major events in Moana 2 when one thinks about the sparse nature of the plot when it's done honestly. Inside Out 2 has more old-fashioned adventure, plotting, which is a true shame. This should be the movie that makes Moana into a truly heroic character. But the writers don't give her enough to do for that to happen. They also don't give her enough to sing. Don't underestimate the top power of a great song or two to really elevate the legacy of a Disney animated film. Frozen wouldn't have hit the same without Let It Go, and the virality of that Bruno tune made Encanto a hit. When people think of Moana, the joyful "You're welcome" and the Oscar-winning beauty of How Far Go are often what they think of first. And the original songs here just don't match the wonder of the original. To say that they really miss the involvement of Lin-Manuel Miranda would be an understatement. There's a playful Maui tune called Can I Get a Chi? Who? That mostly works and could maybe get that Bruno virality if the social team here plays it right, and you'll hear a reasonably rousing recurring theme called Beyond. But neither will be pumping through Disney World like the best of these songs from the best of these movies. If there's one thing that works about Moana 2, it's the visual artistry that a 2020s Disney budget brings to a production like this one. You can almost touch the flowing water and feel the breeze as it moves through the hair of the characters, who are also individually well-designed, from Mao's tattoos to the colorful coconut tribe to the aforementioned clam. Moana 2 is never boring to look at its eye candy, but the legend of Moana deserved something more nutritious, more detail. Moana 2 is not the follow-up we expected, as it was originally meant to be a Disney Plus show and instead arrived as a feature film. I must admit, it was lovely seeing it on the big screen, especially during a gloomy December evening in London, but I can't help but imagine what a full series would have looked like. Personally, I rather like the idea of an entire series dedicated to Hey Hey. Alla Forky asks a question which centers on the much-loved toy Fork character from Toy. Story for an 8-episode series about a stupid chicken is right up my street. I did have high hopes going into this movie, and I'm happy to say that most of my expectations were met. Such bright and beautiful visuals are always a welcome treat. For example, I'm fascinated by how, well, they seem to animate water with this in mind. I would encourage you to see this on a big screen, or at least have a great at-home setup for maximum immersion, as it's easy to find yourself swept away to the island of Motunui, and what lies beyond Moana 2 picks up three years after the first movie, where Moana is still fully connected to the Yan ocean she adores so much. When she receives an unexpected call from her ancestors, she assembles a crew as a wayfinder where she hopes to track down the hidden island of Modu, reconnecting the people of the ocean once again. As ever, she is enthusiastic about the mission, perilous as it may be, and would have been quite happy going off and doing it all by herself. She's encouraged to form a crew instead, and this merry band of misfits is thoroughly entertaining to watch so much. So I think it will be worth rewatching when it arrives on Disney Plus. The 4-person crew is made up of Moana Auliʻi Chung, who is a super fan of the demigod Maui, Lotto Rose Mafio, who is an engineer of sorts, and K. David Fane, a farmer who is grumpy and not massively thrilled to be recruited. This mismatch of personalities is excellent fun, resulting in some expected chaos, especially when you throw in Hei Hei and Pua, they say, to never work with animals for a reason. Right? I really loved Moana's crew and all the performances. Still, one that stood out to me the most was Moana's little sister, Simia Kessi, Lambert Suda, who stole the show despite her limited screen time, thanks to her feisty, lovable personality. If Moana 3 does happen, I'd certainly like to see more of her along the way. Maui, of course, because MO simply would not be complete without Dwayne Johnson's cocky, reckless demigod figure. When Moi finally meets Maui, there are plenty of laugh-out-loud moments. While the plot of Moana 2 is centered around finding a new long-lost island, it's quite ironic that many of the beats feel similar to what we've seen before. This is a journey we have undertaken as viewers, but I didn't mind following along for a second time. Going on a voyage with Moana is always wonderful. I adore the songs, the atmosphere, everything about it, even though we didn't quite reach the memorable heights of You're Welcome. I have had some of the songs stuck in my head this week, especially What Could Be Better Than This, so it's not like any of the songs were complete duds. While predictable, in places there is plenty of action, especially when it comes to the third act, where I did actually start crying. The mark of any good Disney movie, in my opinion. If I'm not sobbing into my popcorn, I do find myself disappointed. There is also more than room for a follow-up movie, and I sincerely hope it happens. Lucy is a longtime movie and television lover who is an approved critic on Rotten Tomatoes. She has written several reviews in her time, starting with a small self-ran blog called Lucy Goes to Hollywood, before moving on to bigger websites such as What's on TV and What to Watch, with Tech Radar being her most recent venture. Her interests primarily lie within horror and thriller loving, nothing more than a chilling story that keeps her thinking moments after the credits have rolled. Many of these creepy tales can be found on the streaming services she covers regularly when she's not scaring herself half to death with the various shows and movies she watches she likes to unwind by playing video games on easy mode and has no shame in admitting she's terrible at them. She also quotes The Simpsons religiously and has a Blinky the Fish tattoo, solidifying her position as a complete nerd. Originally planned as a TV series, now a feature film, Moana 2 is the sequel to Disney's smash hit family animation Moana from 2016, and really it's a vacuum-packed slice of digital IP content, a perky chat GPT iteration of love, laughter, and belonging. Hawaiian-born actor Auliʻi Cravalho returns to voice the role of Moana, the teen heroine. On a Polynesian island in the first film, she was chosen by her waif, finding ancestors, and the mysterious forces of the ocean to restore the natural order of things, disrupted by the swaggering but somehow adorable demigod Maui voiced by Dwayne Johnson. Now it's a few years later, and Moana is a much-respected young woman on the island, admired and imitated by the female inhabitants that Maui calls Ananab. Extra information, the venerated Walt Disney Animation Studios has had an odd relationship with sequels. For a long time, follow-ups to its animated classics were largely outsourced as DTV cheapies who remembers Lady and the Two Scamps adventure. On the other hand, its most successful film ever is the billion-dual grossing Frozen 2. Moana 2 has had a similarly confusing journey to the screen. It began life as a TV series before eventually changing course and making the leap to the big screen. And thank goodness it did, because this quality of animation deserves every inch of a cinema screen, a retread that plays it relatively safe. Moana 2 hardly reinvents any wheel or whales, but it is still delightful, charming, and gorgeous to look at. The new directing trio of David Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Dana Leo Miller staying true to the integrity of the 2016 original story. More seafaring adventures with a titular Polynesian teenager, Auliʻi Cravalho, and her shape-shifting tattooed demigod pal, Maui Dwayne Johnson, set years after the events of the first film were caught up, as you might expect, with a tapping expository song. The village, we learn, is now lush and thriving after Moana rescued it from doom, and she's now a minor celebrity, a wayfinder whose signature hair whip is mimicked by super fans, among them her outrageously adorable puppy-eyed little sister Simia, Kessie Lambert-Suda. But the ancestors are still calling her isolated community, needs to find other peoples beyond the horizon, so she sets sail again. Moana is still a hugely engaging hero, especially for young girls, a pie and endearing theater-kids goofball, and Cravalho still has an impressive set of pipes, especially in new signature song Beyond. Dwayne Johnson's Maui leaves slightly less of an impression. His song Can I Get a Chi, who is not quite the pleasingly sure earworm of You're Welcome, the first film's chief songwriter, Lin-Manuel Miranda, did not return for the second film, but Maui and his magical fishhook are still the franchise's secret weapon. As soon as the people's eyebrow pops up on a shape-shifted shark, you're having fun. It remains outside of a Fast and Furious film. Johnson's best role, Moana, has plenty of help this time. In fact, along with old pals, including a furry pig, a sen-stealing stupid Bogley, chicken voiced by Juilliard-trained actor Alan Tudyk, and a high-fiving anthropomorphic abyss-style ocean spirit. She is also joined by a new crew. You sense that these characters might have had more to do in TV form, but they're still very fun, as whimsical boat engineer Lotto comedian Rose Maffio in particular gets a pacey Miranda-esque solo, while Tao regular David Fiend has a nice turn as a grumpy farmer who can't swim and hates songs, even the coconut-headed Kakamura enjoy an emotional character arc of their own. The songs about working together, living up to your responsibility and destiny in motion are typical of modern Disney films, as is the sense of wacky peril. Yet, despite the constant danger, there is no straightforward antagonist here, other than a cursed storm in effect. The real villain here is bad weather, which is fine, actually. It leaves more room to luxuriate in the stunningly rendered oceanic fantasy mythology this is. Animated fun of a very high standard. Maui's luscious locks have never looked silkier or better condition, and storytelling that leans on formula without being reliant on it. And as with the first film, there's a sense that Disney isn't looking to repeat mistakes of the past, celebrating the Polynesian culture with its rituals, dancing, singing, and stories rooted in authenticity. Also, there's a very funny boggle at chicken. In recent years, family audiences have developed a complicated relationship with Disney. The failures of the once invulnerable studio have received plenty of attention, and not undeservingly so. But there have also been some undeniable hits along the way. Frozen may be the most popular, but in the humble opinion of this reviewer, the best modern Disney flick is 2016's Moana, with endearing characters, a fantastic collection of songs, and an entertaining adventure story. The movie was a total delight. That film was about journeying into uncharted seas, but sometimes, particularly when you're a floundering movie studio, it's more prudent to return to familiar shores. Moana 2 is a wholesome and enjoyable sequel, but despite retreading many of the same narrative beats as the original, it's never able to recapture the same magic the sequel has navigated, a circuitous route to reach the big screen. A follow-up to Moana was first conceived in 2020 as a multi-episode streaming series for Disney Plus, before eventually being reworked as a theatrical release despite the theatrical glow-up. Moana still feels like a streaming show at times for the most part. The animation looks first-rate and up to modern standards, but beyond the visuals, there is a clear dip in quality in most other areas. Story, characters, jokes, music, etc. The story also unfolds in episodic, almost disjointed fashion, making it easy to adapt. Pressing question is not, is this film artistically excellent, but rather, will it entertain my child for a few hours? Yes, Moana 2 is a perfectly passable animated adventure. My 29-year-old boys both had a great time with it, as did several young girls in the theater with us. And there's enough charm for the parents as well. 4 Christian parents not spooked away by the story's mythological and spiritual elements. Moana 2 is wholesome entertainment without any of the unwanted surprises that modern Disney has become known for. Still, given the caliber of the original film and nearly a decade of waiting for Disney to craft Moana's next adventure, audiences are also justified in hoping for something more inspired. Moana 2 feels more like a sequel mandated by executives in a Hollywood boardroom with year-end finances in mind, rather than a fed from the creative genius of inspired storytellers. It's enjoyable, but it lacks the innovative energy of the first film. Starting its life as a streaming show meant that not all the original creatives returned for the sequel. No absence is felt more strongly than Lin-Manuel Miranda, the man responsible for some of Disney's best songs in years in Moana, including hits like How Far I'll Go and You're Welcome. Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear take the songwriting reins for Moana 2, but they're unable to reach the same musical heights. There are a few decent songs, such as the central tune Beyond the playful, What Could Be Better Than This? And Maui's new solo, Can I Get a Chi? But none have the same infectious, sing-along quality or memorability as anything from the original in one sense. The story is overstuffed, another likely byproduct of its episodic roots, with a lot of exposition dumps early on, and several characters and story elements that are dropped and never revisited at. Thus, Maui is again introduced by Moana, saving him from captivity. There's a near-identical conflict with the Kakamura, the Coconut Pirates, and a familiar third act that sees Moana needing to sail through stormy water to release a magical island from the powers of a large, angry deity. There's nostalgic comfort and familiarity, but such a similar narrative can make Moana 2 feel like Disney singing karaoke, offering a new rendition of a far superior original. The main difference between the two films is that Moana is now 3 years older, having already matured and completed her initial hero's journey as a character. Moana remains winsome with her spunky resilience and bubbly optimism. She now takes on a leadership role, charged with taking a crew of quirky individuals on the adventure. The new crew members are all fine, but they are continually overshadowed by the returning legacy characters. The character of Maui feels underutilized and doesn't intersect with Moana until well into the runtime. The relational dynamic between him and Moana, that was the heart of the original, remains a highlight of the sequel, but they are given less time together as a result of the expanded cast of much less interesting characters in the end. Whether audiences find Moana 2 to be smooth sailing or bumpy water may depend on how they manage expectations. Parents looking for safe animated entertainment, or kids simply wanting to see their favorite heroine back on the big screen, should find what they're looking for. Here, audience is seeking another inspired Disney classic, however, will be left wanting more. Unfortunately, Moana's second adventure is more akin to the prior DirecTech video days of The Return of Jafar and The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride than it is to the recent inventively build upon the original days of Inside Out 2. The sea may be calling to Moana to find out how far she'll go. But if there is a Moana 3 on the horizon, one hopes she will answer that call with more urgency, leaving behind familiar shores to explore something exciting and new. Sexuality: a young man is infatuated with the demigod Maui, although it appears to be hero worship rather than anything romantic. The movie expands upon the mythology of the first film, with plenty of talk about gods, demigods, and other spiritual beings. There are also frequent Polynesian cultural and religious influences, with a strong emphasis on the ancestors whose spirits still speak with and guide the characters, sometimes in visible ghostly form. The movie's central motif is about being connected. The theme plays out on a global level, with Moana's position as a wayfinder and her mission to connect all the people of the ocean together. The importance of unity, community, is also explored in the more limited context of the adventure itself, unlike the first film in which Moana leaves her island community to set out on her quest alone. This time, she is accompanied by a diverse trio of fellow adventurers. The crew begins as a collection of individuals, each focused on their own interests and strengths. And Moana, through the help of a few musical numbers, must fashion them into a harmonious team, working as one. Each member retains their individual quirks, but they learn to use their talents to contribute to the communal unit. The Bible urges Christians to be perfectly united in mind and thought. 1 Corinthians, created to exist in community, each individual an important and valuable part of a larger body. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 27. One of Moana's most endearing qualities is her stubborn resilience. As with the first film, perseverance is a prominent theme, although it is explored in a way that may make some parents uncomfortable. A song called Get Lost is initially presented as a classic Disney villain song, but the singer is ultimately revealed to have more motivations. The lyrics include refrains like this, taken at face value. Some parents may not be overly thrilled to have their children embracing the song too literally in the context of the film. However, the song is more of a challenge to not give up. The specific lesson Moana gleans from the encounter is the realization there's always another way, less an anthem about living rebelliously. Moana 2 attempts to offer a message about not giving up, about boldly and relentlessly pressing forward to find a solution. Christians can affirm that message. Scripture says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." James 1:12. This film, directed by David Derrick, Jr., Jason Hand, Dana Leo Miller. Screenplay by Jared Bush. Dana Leo Miller. Story by Jared Bush. Dana Leo Miller. Beth producer by Christina Chen, Iet Merino. Starring Auliʻi Cravalho, Dwayne Johnson, Pai Chung Rose, Mafio, David Fain, by Fraser, Kissy Lambert, Sudateoa Morrison, Nicole Scherzinger, Rachel House, Gerald Ramsey. Alan Tudyk. Music by Mark Menina. POI Production Company, Walt Disney Animation. Studios distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. Release test November 21st, 2024 in Lanona Cultural Institute. November 27th, 2024 in United States. Running time 100 minutes. Country United States. Language English box office, $113.8 million. So, guys, this is the review of Moana 2 movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.